Here we are, it's July 27th, 1997. It's 95 degrees at about 1:30 in the afternoon. It's a hot day in Pleasant Ridge, Michigan. Gonna have a little video tour of 7 Amherst, the famous home of the Thomas A. Joseph family. Here's the neighbors. Number 9 Amherst, the Ganses, and there's my car, 95 Saturn, in the Ganses garage. Of course, now it's the Werners. Ganses moved out about 5 years ago. There's the Duffy's old house. Don't know who lives there now. And next to that's where Barbara used to live. Barbara and Winston Jones. It's kind of an idea of what it looks like down the street. It's a beautiful sunny summer day. There's the old crabapple tree. We used to throw crab apples across the street. There's the Richter's house. Now it's the Karrases. The famous alley leading over to Manufacturers Bank. And of course the Demas' homestead. The concentration camp, as my dad used to call it. Wondering why they never let those kids out of there. There's Woodward Avenue. Quiet now. Number 1 Amherst. Number 3. Number 5. Our wonderful garage and driveway. And back to number 7. Of course, Mom's always been into her gardens. Here in the front we have the hostas. Some other wonderful flowers. Here we are moseying down the driveway. A few years ago the house was sided, vinyl siding, but before that it was wood. And here comes a visitor right now. Who could this be?
Rick! We keep all that quiet, right?
That's right.
Oh, quiet.
How you doing today, Mark?
Fine, Rick. How
Yeah?
are you?
Fine. We're going on a little guided tour of the exterior of 7 Amherst.
Rick, you look good.
Thanks.
Rick. You look good, Rick.
Thanks, Mark. Here we are in the backyard. St. Francis and the Rock Garden. Backyard, patio. Another flowers, little turtle, bird bath. What was that again?
Lisa is a woman. Lisa is a man.
And Ida, with the church, you're more liberal than I am. I've always said to myself, well, if it were in my lifetime, I'd be pretty old.
Mark my words. Write it down.
I shall mark the words of Ida Joe.
The
The next poem. Now, Aunt Ida Joseph, tell me the exact story when you moved in this house and what were the circumstances. The common thing we hear is that after the death of Grandpa Joseph, you and the family all moved in here.
That's right, Mark. We came here because Grandma was here alone. And we were renting over on Burns, where my dad had a 2-family flat. And we were living there for 6 years.
Yeah.
And then we came back here when Grandpa Joseph died.
You had, then of
It
course,
was in February 1952.
because Grandpa Joseph died in January
That's
1950. So no sooner had Grandpa Joseph died on January 18th, you and Uncle and the
We
children
came
were
here
here.
on Valentine's Day, February 14th. It was dead winter. It was midterm, we decided to start, John started at St. Catherine's in the first grade, first semester. And so when we came here, it was midterm, so he started at St. Mary's in the middle of the year.
So what motivated you to move here was more space and keeping Grandma Joseph company.
Well, Grandma Joseph had nowhere else to go. I mean, we could have stayed on at Burns there, but it was too crowded for her. She didn't want to live there with us, and she couldn't live here by herself. See, Grandma Joseph did not have any income. At that time, she had no Social Security. There was the rule at that time was if you had your own business, if you were an employer, you could not file for Social Security. The law came about 5 years after that. They passed the law where a man that has his own, anyone that had their own business were eligible for
Yes.
Social Security. That's how come my mother got under it, and my dad. But when Grandpa Joseph died, there was she had no Social Security. She had no income coming in.
So she was so glad, of course, you gang were coming to live here.
Well, of course, but we were kind of crowded, and we intended to, when I was pregnant with Marcia, who was number 4, we thought that Grandma would agree to sell this house, and we would look for a bigger house.
Yeah, what's the story about that?
But she didn't want to, no.
She just did not
She
want to leave this
refused.
house.
The house was in her name.
Oh,
you see.
in her name.
Oh, yeah, because she and Grandma and Grandpa died.
Now after was it originally ever it was both, now after Grandpa died, the house became in her
It's
name.
just hers, that's right, that's right. And she didn't want to sell, didn't want to leave here. So then we weren't in a position just to move out. We couldn't handle taking care of 2 places because she was not in a position to pay the taxes and run this house, this whole thing by herself. Because she had no income.
All right, and yet
And
you,
your Grandpa Joseph, oddly enough, never believed in insurance. He had no life insurance. He had no, whatever money he had, he didn't put money in the bank. Whatever money he had, the monies that they had, went towards the hospital and the funeral. Because he was at Bon Secours Hospital for almost 3 months in a private room, and whatever money, because that time there was no health insurance, and he had no life insurance, and so whatever money the store came out.
one account I heard he was in almost 4 months. I mean, he was in point is,
He
he was
went
at
in-
least 3 months for
Well, he
sure.
went October, and he died in January.
Right, there you are. So, and then, all right, then you got pregnant with Marcia,
See,
which was
when I-
1953.
Yeah, that's right.
1953, or late 1952, you got pregnant, because Marcia's born in
No,
September.
Denise was born in 1950. When we came here, she was 14 months old.
So you figured, all right, we'll stay. We'll stay. Was that
We had no choice, Mark. Financially, we were not able to go ahead and buy another.
Oh, you said,
We needed the money that would be generated from this place and add what we had to it to buy another house. But if Grandma would not agree to it, we had no choice.
so you now realize, for now, this will be our life, and this is where we're going to live.
Well,
And-
we didn't know. We started to look around, but we didn't see anything. At that time, they were building all ranch. That was the big thing, was the 1 floor.
Did you ever
ranch.
consider moving to Royal Oak by any chance, being your mom and dad?
Well, we're close enough here.
But you figured you were close enough.
But what I'm saying is, we were not in a position to move unless the sale of this house generated funds.
Would you not?
And Grandma absolutely refused.
She
Would
refused.
not sell. So what could we do?
So,
We were here, so then we decided, well, if we were gonna stay here, we had to have more space. So then we added the room, Mr. Christie that built your mom and dad's
Yeah,
house.
where I'm aware of that.
He came and he added the den there. And for the longest time, John and Tom used that as a bedroom. There was a hide-a-bed there, and they used to sleep on that. See, and then when they got older, then Uncle Tom did the third floor when they were in first year, well, the first year of high school.
Well, now that was an attic then.
It was a full attic, but he made it into an apartment.
Now, what year was that again, or you
No,
don't?
I don't remember what
You
year. What was the
remember?
first year John went to UBI? He graduated.
Oh, John
He
graduated,
graduated in '63.
so around 59 or 60.
Yeah.
That was finally made into
So
the
he
third
went-
floor.
Tom did most all the work up there. He had a friend that came at night and did the electrical work, a guy he knew from the Boy Scouts. And then there was this other Jerry Schmidt, who's a carpenter by trade, who did the desks and
Then as the years go
the
on,
rest of it all was done by Tom.
then as the years went on in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, this is where,
Well, the kids
Adequate.
that were in the school, they were all enrolled at St. Mary's, and we completely redid this house. When we moved in, we spent, and at that time, stop and think, 1952, we spent over $800 and some on storms and screens. Not one of the windows had the storms and screens. They had the old-fashioned storms that you put on, you know, on the outside. But I don't even think they had storms for the windows in the dining room and living room. They had, it just used to be screened. And they were all in pretty bad shape, so we went ahead and got all that, that was the first thing we did.
and how was electricity
Well,
type?
we had to upgrade all the electricity, they had to come under code, they had to come with a whole new circuit breakers. We put a lot of money in this house, put a new roof. We paid the taxes. We put into this house what we would have put if we had bought a house. Everything that was had to be done here, we did it. Because Grandma had no money. She had no savings. But she used to, your dad well, Tom and Joe used to give her $50 a week. That was her expense.
Oh, that's something I was never aware of.
See, so that $50, that was hers. So whatever she bought gas for her car, the guys got the car for her.
That's 1954, because that was a blue Ford,
Yeah.
and Dad told me that's 1954, the year I was
That's
born.
right, that's right.
A 1954
So the guys
blue
got her
Ford.
that car, and they paid the insurance and everything. She never had life insurance. The first thing that your Uncle Tom did when we moved here, he called this Mr. Vestani, who was an attorney, or an insurance man.
Is that AAA by any chance? AAA?
No. She got AAA later when we got AAA. He was an insurance agent. He used to have, they had insurance with him down at the store. So Dad said right away, I want to get a life insurance policy for my mother. Because she had no life insurance and her husband didn't. So when you stop and think how foolish that was, you know.
That was common among the generation of Grandma and Grandpa
So,
Joseph, or
I
you?
don't know.
We don't,
Well, my folks, they all had life insurance.
but she did not.
No life insurance, and the money, he kept the money, I think a lot of it was in cash.
Was the
He didn't
basement,
have checking account or bank accounts.
was the basement done a couple times over, or?
No, we did the basement when John was a Cub Scout.
Oh,
We did the floor, went down there and had the tile put in, and painted the walls and everything. When we came here, it was just an old basement, see. Although at the time when they first moved here, back in 1936, Tom fixed the basement. They had a bar down there, they had a ping pong table, they had friends used to...
actually, Aunt Ida, I don't mean to sound technical, but the year was, Dad had graduated from St. Agnes in 1937.
Yeah.
Therefore, it was 37 Grandma and Grandpa moved here.
It wasn't 37.
Because, a reason I don't want to sound technical
Was
is
it,
because
well, did Tom graduate in 35 or 36?
35,
Okay, well, they moved here in 36.
37,
37.
because Dad graduated from St. Agnes in
Okay,
37.
all right.
See, the reason I know that as a fact, because, you see, Dad and Uncle Tom were held back a year because of illness.
Yeah.
Normally, see, Uncle Tom would have graduated in 1934 and Dad in 36, but they both had illnesses that held them back a year.
Yeah.
That made Uncle Tom graduate in
That's why
1935.
Father Villero thought that Tom was 80. When it was his 80th birthday. And I said, well, you know, Tom was 81 and this week was the same time in June. He said, no, he said he's 80, the same as I
No,
am.
but see, now we know the story.
And I said, no, I said Tom was 1 year behind. You know.
So the year Dad told me, no sooner had Dad graduated from St. Agnes in 1937, they moved out right away out to Pleasant Ridge. They were ahead of their time and leave Detroit.
Well, they wanted to come out where Charlie and Jill were.
And also
You
the
know
Yes
that
Books
house
too.
on Devonshire?
Yes.
That was moved from Royal Oak onto that lot.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, Albert was telling me, I didn't know that either. This house was completely a frame house, was on Hudson Street in Royal Oak. See, they used to have a grocery store there on Main. And they picked up that house and brought it just the way it was. He bought those 2 lots, the one that the house was on and the one next to it. So they put the house right on the lot.
I'll be
And then they
darned.
built a garage and they did the rest of it. But that, I never knew that either, but that house, that was not on that street. That's why that house always looked different from the rest of the street, didn't it? You know, the other houses on Devonshire were different. You
Now
know?
we know that.
Yeah, I found that out from Albert told me that. But, no, they wanted to come out because I think Charlie and Jill came out here.
Also the Yesbicks, I think
Well, Yesbicks were out in
the
Ferndale.
Yesbicks were out in Ferndale.
That's right, that's right.
Route Ferndale.
And they bought that house on Grayson and they had the market on Woodward Heights
Yeah. So
in Ferndale.
that means they lived here a full 15 years. Oh, wait a minute, Mom and Dad lived here too after they got married.
They came, and that's when we moved out and they came back and Bob was born.
'Cause Bob was born in
Because they-
1946.
You know, Grandpa had bought 2 lots on Oxford.
Oh, yes, I heard that
and
story.
Pleasant Ridge. He wanted us to build a house side by side, which was ridiculous.
I heard that story.
And so Claire and I says, are you kidding, you know? And I said, well, you know, you got to be a little diplomatic. I says, you know, that's so close to Woodward Avenue. We don't want the kids being so close. Look how we're so close to Woodward anyhow. But I mean, there was that gas station. Then you know what, the people that did build on that built that wooden fence, so you really aren't aware of the gas station.
Now, when you came here in 1952, were a lot of these houses on Amherst here, or were they still building them?
No,
Building them.
the next door, Trevero, was the one that built a year after we came here.
What about down the street? Were more of them built, or were most of them around?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. But on this street, most all the houses that are there were there at the time.
Now, was the park there in 1952? The park? Where not only, of course, did
There-
my cousins play, we played there too.
Yeah.
The other
park was there.
Josephs played there too.
But, no, it was, the only difference was you could stand on the porch, on this porch, and look all the way down to Woodward Heights. There were no buildings, no businesses. Everything was just vacant, you know, there was trees and that, but there weren't any properties of any kind, you know. The flower shop, she hadn't built that big flower shop yet. The bank wasn't there. So you could stand on the porch and you could look all, and the city office was right there at Woodward Heights in Woodward, that little building, you've seen that little house. And the police station, that little police station, that was all right there on Woodward Heights. And that's where you'd go to pay your taxes, or you get water bill, or whatever. That was the post office, the city hall, right there.
Now, do you remember what year the Gans moved in?
Gans were already here.
Oh, they were here.
They came here, before we, let's see, there was people called Richardsons that lived here during the war. And because I was here when Dad was still gone, you know, I came here before Richard was born, and I stayed here. I lived here with Grandma and Grandpa.
Before John was born.
Yeah, why do I keep saying it's before John was born? So I came here and stayed with Grandma and Grandpa until John was born, and then Tom came home, and we still were here until Joe and Clara came. They came up from Florida, and Bob was born. So you can see how pretty crowded this place was. And another thing was, Grandpa sold those 2 lots on Oxford, and he turned around and bought the lot on Sunset.
The
So
lot.
they knew that Joe and Clara had planned to stay here.
And Mr. Christie built that home.
Right, so that's why the logical thing was that we would move, because they planned to build here and stay in Royal Oak. So that's when Grandpa Francis bought this property on Burns, two-family flat, nice brick place. Big house, 3 bedrooms, each floor had a flat. They used to call them flats, but they were identical.
And since Grandpa Joseph was still living in 1950, and Denise was the only granddaughter at the time, the last thing on your mind while he was still living in 1950 is that you would be living here.
That's right. We never thought.
Never thought of it. And
So anyhow,
1950.
that's the way it went. And so then my dad bought this property, and so he said, if you guys want to move, we still hadn't decided definitely in our mind whether we wanted to go east side or north side. We hadn't made up our mind.
did you ever consider Grosse Pointe?
Well,
Grosse Pointe.
we really talked about it, but we really didn't look. We weren't looking.
Now, Mom and Dad told me they considered Grosse Pointe
Yeah.
one time,
Yeah,
the east suburbs.
yeah, the east
but
side.
they got the
Yeah, so that was the way
Well-
that went, but I think the fact that Grandpa took the money, those 2 lots he sold on Oxford, he got them at a real good price anyhow, because I think they were right on the corner there. And he had ideas of us building 2 houses and living there, side by side. So anyhow, that's the way that went. So then we moved. We moved in August. John was 1 year old, August 19th, and we moved over on Burns. And it was really a beautiful house, and we had a lot of space, 3 bedroom. John had his room, Tom had his room.
And no sooner had Mom and Dad come back, they moved in here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They were here when we were still here. They had, your mom and dad and Bob had the room that's your room. And Tom and I had the room that's the stamp room. And then, and Richard's crib, John's crib used to be, Richard's, your crib was, no, I don't think your crib was ever there. Your crib was in our room for a while. But anyhow, and your grandma and grandpa had the room that we have, the big room, the big bedroom, that was their room.
And then that's where you end up moving to Burns when you...
Yeah, so we came, it was crowded. Bob was a baby. And then my dad had bought this property with the idea, he saw how congested it was, so he says, look, why don't you guys move? We only charge us $50 a month in rent. So we moved that all, John was a year old, and we moved over there, and we had real nice neighbors upstairs, and then when Adele and Louie got married, which was what, they were married
47.
They were married 3 years after us. Grandpa told the people that he had someone for that flat, so Adele and Louie moved upstairs. So that's where we were, and that's where we stayed.
Now what about the garage? Is this the original garage?
No, we had the garage rebuilt, we had a new roof put on the garage. We did, like I said, everything that's been done in this house. It's too bad there weren't pictures. You said you saw pictures of how the house looked. When we first moved here, no.
The interior of the house in the mid-50s, the walls were pink in the living room. The walls were pink and there were floral curtains.
Drapes, yeah,
Drapes.
yeah. When we first came here, you see, we had furniture, the house where we rented, the people moved out, they left all the furniture. And we didn't have any furniture, so that worked out fine. We used the furniture that was in that house. Big dining room, oak table and chairs and china cabinet. And the type of furniture I didn't especially like, it was modern. But we said, that's fine, while we're living here, we'll use that furniture. So we did. So when we left Burns and came here, Grandma had all this furniture here, so we left the furniture there. Whoever bought that house after we left had that furniture, if they sold or whatever they wanted to do with it. But
So in fact, there was not a garage here,
there was a garage, but it was old.
and you had it torn down and a new one built.
And then we had a new roof put on that garage. There was a guy that I worked with at GM. He used to, on weekends, he used to do roofing. So he came out, and this has got to be about 10, 12 years ago, he did the roof. But we re-roofed the house too. This roof was put on about, oh gosh, I don't know for sure, 10 years. In
Oh.
fact, the man that came, the guy that owned the roofing company, wrote up the contract and everything, gave us a real good price. When he came to put the roof up, the 2 men that worked for him refused to go up that high.
quite high.
They said, we're not gonna do it. So the man had to end up going up there himself, the guy that owned the roofing company, with another helper. And he had already drawn up the contract, we had signed and everything, so he couldn't back out. But the two helpers, they said, you can't get us to go up that high. That's such a steep roof. So it ended up, he did most everything, most of the work himself, the man that owned the company. But
A lot of the furniture you got here, did you
we
move a
bought,
lot?
after we came here,
You bought?
we got rid of the furniture that Grandma had. Grandma had, they used to call those mohair sofa, it was red, and chair red. I mean, it was not what I would have wanted, but for about 2 years, it stayed. Because, after Grandpa died. But then, when it came time that we've got the new drape, the floral drapes and curtains and that, and so we bought the dining room set, and that was when your mom and dad, they bought the same dining room set.
Yeah, the one I got at home now.
Yeah, and then we bought the living room
That's how
furniture.
familiar they look. That looks
It's the same set.
almost the same type of set.
Yeah.
Except that the chairs are a little
Your
different.
chairs are a little different. Claire and I would know
Now I got that figured out.
I remember we bought them two at the same time. But no, then we changed the carpeting. The carpeting was a dull brown when we first came. It was ugly.
We had a dull
I think
gray.
that must have been carpeting that was in the house when you see, this house was built in 1926.
Mhm.
So Grandma and Grandpa bought it in 37.
But how was the year?
See, now they were only the second owners.
Mhm.
Because the original owners were the ones that Dad had built in 26. So that carpeting was put in from the first people that bought that house, or this house. So that, we replaced all that. As time went on, we did more and more. And then we built that room on, it was $3,000 at that time, which was quite a bit. And the furnace, we changed the furnace from oil to gas. We had to get a new hot water
The
heater.
ping pong table down there now.
That's
that-
not the original. We bought another ping pong table. That's a newer ping pong table.
Your ping pong table.
Oh, yeah,
And down there's a little house we kids used to play in
Tom
all the
did
time.
that, yeah.
We
Tom
used to
did-
play in that little
That used
house.
to be just a,
Then there's the tool room down there.
Yeah.
Boy, that's classic.
that used to be the coal bin.
Oh, the cold.
Yeah, because they used to burn coal before they
Oh.
changed to oil. And then, and during the war, I was telling Rick, during the war, oil was rationed because they needed it for the armed forces. So everybody that was burning oil got a book of stamps. And you had to use once a month. Had to use it once your stamps were out and you're out of oil, you're out of oil. But the oil truck used to come and fill the tank, and that was it. So many's the time that Grandma and Grandpa would come home, because Grandma used to go to the store there when the boys were gone. They used to bring a lot of wood from the store, these crates, the oranges and grape, all the stuff used to come in wooden crates in those days. The apples and everything was in wooden boxes. They used to bring that wood and they used to burn it in the fireplace to warm up the house,
You know, you're talking about, it's just something how all these years we did not know that Anthony Gell's house had been moved.
Yeah, I never knew. I never knew. I don't know how I was brought up with Albert.
But it was
I said,
moved.
well, Albert-
I was under the assumption it was a very, very old house built in
Yeah.
that spot.
It was even older if it was in Royal Oak. But no, I didn't know either. But Albert, I don't know how he brought it up, but he told me that that house was moved over to.
So now,
He probably only paid maybe a couple thousand for it at the time that he bought it.
so when you came here to live here, do you grab, not only Grandma, but you and Uncle used to go visit Anthony Gell and Uncle Charlie a lot too?
No, we didn't. Grandma used
Grandma
to.
took.
Yeah, Grandma used to.
Take
They
her
used to
walks.
go, well, your grandpa and Charlie, every night they used to play backgammon. Either here or.
We have a picture of him,
Yeah.
picture of them playing backgammon in 1945.
Yeah, he used to go over there and play
Picture.
backgammon. And Mother used to go, she used to go with him and used to visit with Aunt and Jill. And
So it was the rare
No, we
night.
didn't, Tom and I didn't go there hardly at all.
It was the rare night that Grandpa did not play backgammon with
That's
Uncle
right.
Charlie.
That's
Rare night.
Yeah.
We do have a photograph of them playing backgammon in
Yeah.
1945 at home.
I played every night, used to play all the time.
They didn't play, it was unusual.
That's right, when he was sick. Grandpa had high blood pressure real bad, and that was the reason he went into a stroke. And he wouldn't take his medicine. I remember Grandma fighting with him to take this. He used to have this red medicine that was in a bottle, and he had this doctor over on 9 Mile. His name
You ever go to Dr. Johnson, like Grandma Joseph did?
No, he had Dr. Chrisman, who was
Dr.
in Ferndale.
Ferndale.
His office was right on.
Because Dr. Johnson was down Fisherville.
Yeah, he was Grandma's doctor. Dr. Chrisman was well known in Ferndale. He'd been there a long time. I think they knew him through the Espix. But he had his office right there, you know, on the corner there was a drugstore. I don't know what it is, right on the corner there of 9 Mile and Woodward.
Right Aid.
Oh no, Rite Aid's go. No, I'm talking across the street. East 9 Mile.
Oh, I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
There used to be a drugstore, and he had offices. They used to have doctor and dentist, because I remember going to a dentist there. His office was up there before I went to Dr. Maddow. So Dr. Chrisman prescribed blood pressure medicine, and Grandpa wouldn't take it, so he always had, you know, he'd get upset and his blood pressure would go up and down.
Did he really? He did eat a lot of donuts though,
He
right?
ate a lot of
Because Dad used to bring up how he used to love
He
his
used
eat
to
his donuts.
stop. He used to stop at the
Donut.
Polish bakery over there on the east side. He used to buy a lot of the sweet stuff, donuts.
But the oil, it was coal oil, and you'd still oil to this day.
No, we turned it to gas when we bought a new furnace.
How long has that been?
Oh, actually,
Or you don't remember?
we converted the old furnace from oil to gas, and then that furnace blew up or something happened, so we had to get a new furnace. And of course, it's always been gas.
And again, you said it's never been possible to get central air conditioning in this house.
No, because of the system, the steam.
It's not possible, unlike our house.
Unless you change the whole system. And because when Tom was at the U of D architecture school, he worked 6 months of the year, he worked at Sears. You had to learn the engineering part, you had to learn all the facets of architecture, and he inquired about it, whether it was feasible to him. Unless you changed the whole system. And actually, rate of steam heat is your best heat because you'd never have any humidity. We never had to have a dehumidifier. We never had dryness, you know, like the air would be dry in the house or it's static if you walked on the carpet or that. That was because of the moisture in the steam heat. So they always said that's your best heating system, but you can't get air conditioning through that system. That's a lot of the homes here in Pleasant Ridge, the old homes that have radiators and that. They don't have air, they have the ceiling fans. And actually it never got really so hot because the house is 3 floors. The
Yeah.
heat used to go up to the attic, you see. And then when we made the attic into a room, we had to get a space heater up there because the furnace wouldn't carry all the way up to the 3rd floor. So we had to put that gas space heater. And then we had to, another thing too, the pipes wouldn't go through to the den. So he had to put an extension, and then they put wall convectors. That's why in the den those are wall convectors, the steam heat. But that was all.
Did you ever have an air conditioner in any of your rooms?
Oh yeah, we used to have in the
In your
window,
rooms.
like when they
Rooms.
started out with those air conditioning. I think Adele and Louie had one that they sold to us because they got a new one, and so we used that. But Dad never liked air conditioning. He always shut it off. No part of it. The hotter the better. He liked it when it was warm.
So, what year were you born?
1921.
And you were born in Ajjaltun.
Right.
Now, why were you born in Ajjaltun when you were the 3rd of 6 children, right?
Well, my dad and mom made a trip to Lebanon. My dad had a grocery business, and he had this cyst on his lower back that wouldn't heal, kept dripping. And the doctor said to him, unless he got off his feet and stayed off his feet to let that heal, it could lead to further things, which is cancer. So he said to Dad, you've got to take time out, you've got to get off. So my mother said, I want to go back to Lebanon and see my mother before she dies. She was in her 80s. See, my mother was born when my grandmother was in her 46, 47 years old. Grandma was the youngest of them all. They were all her brothers and sisters. They were all married and on their way, you know.
And so how many kids were in the Spire family, your mother's family?
There was, she had 3 brothers and 1 sister.
And one was a priest.
Yeah, so there are 5 of them.
That priest never married, or did that priest marry?
No,
Priest
he
not married.
died young too. He was the one that baptized them. He was a Jesuit priest.
Oh, Jesuit.
Oh, the Spire family, well, Paul will tell you, the Spire family, that's what they're noted for, is their connection with the priesthood, the Maronites and Chaltun, the whole
But in
town.
this case, he was a Jesuit.
Yeah, he was a Jesuit. He used to teach, Grant said. He taught. And he died a young man, though. I don't know if she ever said what he died of, whether it was heart or what. But anyhow, so Grandma tells Dad, let's make a trip. Because you're not going to get better until you get off your feet. So his brother-in-law, Aunt Ida's husband, he said he would take care of the store. So
That was Abdu.
so Abdu went to stay in the store. And it was a 21-day trip by boat.
Of course, there's a story what happened when Grandpa threw the dolls and
Well, yeah, but that was when we were coming back.
Can't
But anyhow, going over.
And so you're,
So my mother was like 3 months, well, not 3 months, but she started pregnancy. But she didn't want to tell Dad because she knew if she told him, he'd say, forget it, we're not going, we'd stay here. So she didn't say. But poor Mom, all the way over, she spent all the time down in the stateroom because she was so sick all the time. Besides the boat motion and the rest of it, she had the morning sickness, all day long sickness. So Grandpa had Adele and Clara to take care of, the 2 of them. So he used to keep them busy. And then we got to Lebanon, and it must have been, let's see, if I was born in October, it was summer. It was starting spring and summer because we were there through the summer. And Grandpa wanted to go to Damascus to see his family. So Mother said, well, you couldn't go, I'll stay here in the mountains where it was cool. So he went to Damascus where his brother was, and that's the one that Paul saw, Nijam's son, in Damascus, Mardini. That's the grandson of well, he would be grandnephew to my dad, because I think Dad was, see, there were two marriages in that family. The first marriage, Dad's Uncle Mose,
came from the first, because the
Yeah.
first wife died.
that's right, the first one died.
And there was a remarriage where the other
And
children
then-
came.
And then he remarried, and that from that second marriage, there was my dad, Aunt Rose, and Aunt Ida.
And James.
I thought was James the youngest?
No, Aunt Ida Mavrock is the youngest.
I know, but I'm just wondering,
I never knew James existed until a couple
well,
of
I
years
thought
ago.
that James was from the, I'm stuck from the.
You mean, James might have been from the first.
Yeah, Uncle Mose, and I think they were, yeah. There were 5 altogether. So so he went to Damascus, and he stayed there, and met his old buddies, his old cronies, and they thought, well, this is the big millionaire from the United States, he played cards, and this and that. No, there was no grandparents on that side.
so Grandpa Francis didn't want Grandma to meet any of his family or anything?
Well,
He
she
didn't.
knew his, yeah, she met his.
She'd never been to Damascus.
She had been to, she went down to Damascus for a couple of days or so. After I was a little older and that, we went down to, but it was so, Damascus was so crowded and hot, in Syria there. And Grandma was not too excited about Grandpa's relatives. I mean,
Why not?
they were altogether different than her family.
I never knew that fact.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, and she thinks that they kind of took Dad for his money. They were all begging, he didn't have money, could he get him this, could he give him that? So Ma saw that his money was beginning to dwindle, so she said, we were there I was a year and a half when we came back. So she said, it's time to go back home. He was a lot better, the dripping had stopped.
So
you-
the doctor figured to change the climate.
Well, no, the main thing was to stay off your feet. When you have these perineal cysts, they call them, they drain. So if they keep draining, if they don't dry up, then the infection could stay. stay, see. The main thing was to stay off your feet and to allow the wound to heal. So he did that. He sat a lot and he, vacation. So then,
Long vacation.
yeah, so Mother and Grandma said, well, time to go back.
So you, all together, they were how long in Lebanon?
More than
Syria?
a year and a half, because they left here before I was born. When we came back, I was a year and a half. I was talking and walking, and already potty trained. And
Now, when
Grandma
you-
said I was something else. I mean,
When you got back to the United States, what, to your knowledge, do you remember what street you located on? What was the street?
oh gosh.
You don't know.
It was either McDougal or no, it must have been, Adele started school at St. Elizabeth's. Is that down by Alexandria? I think that's where Grandma.
No.
And do you
Not Mount
remember
Elk, no.
where Grandpa's
Further
store was?
west.
Where his store was?
You know where Alexandrine is, where
Mhm.
Grace Hospital used to be? And he had a grocery store there.
On what street? You remember what street?
I think it was Alexandrine. I don't know. I never questioned. Don't be so technical. Because, but then I think Uncle John might have all that information. But so then we came back. Well, that was when we were on the boat, and Grandpa had bought us these French dolls, famous dolls.
So you're coming back
We're on
from,
our way back.
back from
And
the-
guess what? My mother was pregnant with Lila. So she was sick again on the boat, and Grandpa had 3 of us. So he's got us 3 girls on his hand.
Where'd
All
you get, so you had, who
for
had
all
bought
that-
you these dolls?
Grandpa did. He got us these dolls on the boat. They used to have the gift shops.
You sold, so
These
he bought
dolls
you
were made
these
in
dolls that
France.
came from the boat.
Beautiful French dolls, with the curls. And he got me the baby doll. Well, that didn't sit too good. I wanted a doll like Adele and Clara had. So I put on quite a tantrum and a big fuss, and my dad was a low boiler. He would get, his temper would flare. But if he ever erupted, heaven help us, he really got into, so he got so angry, he took those 3 dolls and threw them into the Atlantic Ocean. And then we started the screaming and the crying. He says, okay, if you don't want this doll and the other, all of them are gone. Now that was kind of a shame because, the girls, they should have had their turn. By that time, Adele was 6, Clara was what, 4? Almost 4, because I wasn't 2 yet. But, oh, that was something. My mother said that was, and then Mom was sick again, coming on back on the boat. Because we got back here, and then I don't know how much longer than that. Lila was born in January. But Grandpa changed quite a few different stores. He had different places, and he would open up a store, and then business wasn't good. He used to open up another market. But he was always in the grocery business.
Of course, Depression came along in 1929, and
We had a house on Meldrum that Dad bought, and we went to Our Lady of Sorrows. It was across the street, down to near the corner. I think it's still there, the church. It was a Belgian area. Belgian people built Our Lady of Sorrows. It was a nice church. And they had a school. And I was there for the 1st and 2nd grade, made my first communion there. And then we moved over to Crane, and that's when we started St. Catherine's. I was in the 3rd grade, and Adele and Clara and Lila didn't go. Did Lila go to St. Catherine's? She must have started the 1st grade.
So at this time, Grandpa had a grocery store that he owned by himself,
Yeah.
or was he in partnership with anyone?
No, he always was by himself. He owned this market on Crane and Sylvester, real nice neighborhood. And we lived on top of the store. That's when I was telling you Jeanette fell out the window.
What was that story again with Aunt Jeanette?
My mother had gone downtown. She had taken the bus and went downtown shopping. And Clara was in charge. Clara was the babysitter. Jeanette was 18 months old. Your mother's told you that, I'm sure.
A long.
It was in the newspaper, and they had a picture of Errol. Oh, yeah, a picture of how far she fell. It was to be Detroit Times and Detroit News were the two newspapers. There was no free press.
There was a free press.
Was there at that time back?
Oh,
then?
yeah. There were 3 papers.
Was there? Well, yeah, this was in the Times or News, I'm not sure.
But the free press was
But
big in the
she
morning.
was sitting, the living room windows kind of bayed out a little bit. They were out a little bit going from the building. And she was sitting, Lila and I were downstairs and we had candy. They both had suckers. You know, we used to go in the store and get candy. Grandpa was right there. So we were down there with our suckers. Jeanette was up there in the window and Clara was watching her. And somehow the screen wasn't fastened enough. So she pushed the screen and she fell. She went right down from the 2nd story there, landed right on her little fat butt. And the remarkable thing was she wasn't even scratched. She wasn't even, unbelievable. Well, in the meantime, my dad, there was this one driver who sold sausage and lunch meat and stuff, good friend of Dad's. He says to Dad, I'll take her over to the emergency. There was, right across the street from Aunt Ida was this little hospital on Cadillac Avenue. Small private hospital. So he said, I'll take her over there, you know, have the doctor check her. And that's what Dad said. So Dad couldn't leave the store. So Clara went with her, and my aunt right away came right across the street when she heard about it. She just, you know, she knew. So she came over. And they checked her, and she was fine. Nothing, they couldn't see anything wrong. It was quite a...
You asked about the free press being around. Amazing. In fact, the free press has been around since 1831
In Detroit?
in
Yeah.
Detroit.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
for a while there, it had 3 major newspapers.
Oh, I don't, we always got the news.
Yeah, but there was the free press too.
And then when Lila worked for the Times, she used to start working for the Detroit Times. And then the Times was taken over by the News.
Yeah.
And she was the executive secretary there at the time. She had a terrific job before she left. But anyhow, that's what was the story with Jeanette. And down she went. My mother came home. She couldn't, poor Clara was just so upset because she was in charge, you know. But we were so thankful that she wasn't hurt.
And where was Aunt Adele at the time?
I don't know. Remember.
Because normally wouldn't Aunt Adele have been
Jill
in
might have
charge?
been in the store. She helped Grandpa in the store all the time. She might have been working in the store.
Even when she was...
Well, what was she had been that time? 13? Yeah. John started working in the store. In fact, John got a special license to drive the truck because it was like a emergency thing because he was the only one in the family.
He had an accident with his teeth though one time.
Yeah, but I mean, John got a driver's license earlier than he would have because it was a family business and they needed someone to drive the truck. It was all delivery business. When we moved over on Baldwin there, John was driving the truck all the time until Bill Brown came and he used to take the truck. But, yeah, but we used to have quite a long walk to St. Catharines from Crane and Sylvester to Seminole and Sylvester.
You remember the Order of Sisters at that church?
Oh, IHM all the
IHM.
way. Oh, yeah. At IHM from the 1st to the 12th grade.
So you went
St.
to
Charles had IHM also.
Well, you went to St. Catharines from the 1st grade?
3rd grade,
3rd grade.
yeah. Oh, the nuns at Our Lady of Sorrows, I don't remember what order. That
So-
when I was in 1st and 2nd
1st and
grade.
2nd grade.
I don't remember.
And they didn't have kindergarten back then?
No. They
You
might
went,
have had in the public school, but I don't think so. I don't think so. That was 75, 76 years ago.
And when you were a little girl, having been in Lebanon for a year and a half, did you speak Arabic?
Not to my knowledge.
So you always remember when you were a little girl speaking to
Yeah.
your sisters and to your
We
mother
all
and your
spoke
father
English.
in English? They never chastised you in Arabic?
No, my
Was,
dad had this idea that you're in America now, you speak English, you cook American.
even go to the American churches.
Rarely did we ever Grandma made kibbeh. She made more kibbeh after Grandpa died than she did while he was living.
I didn't know that.
Every Sunday it was leg of lamb, or chicken, or roast beef.
Or spaghetti.
Not on Sunday, never had spaghetti on Sunday.
Oh, really?
We had roast, we used to have roast beef, roast lamb, like a lamb, or chicken. Never deviated. We would keep.
But what Aish, did you ever have that? Did you ever make that?
Oh, yeah, she used to make great. But what I'm saying is, kibbe, like the Lebanese people, that was a staple, like an everyday thing, like the Italians with their pasta. And my mother was not a good kibbe maker because she didn't make it enough. Now, Grandma Joseph was the best kibbe maker, and she taught your mom, you know, how to make kibbe.
I always thought Grandma Frances taught.
No, but your mother was a better kibbe maker. My mother's problem was she put too much meat and not enough buttermilk. And she said in the old country, that was the status, that if people had money, they used more meat than buttermilk, because buttermilk was the filler, you know. And she used to always say that the people that were wealthy, when they would cook, would make their kibbe or whatever, they always used more meat because they had it available. Whereas the poor people, they used to use more buttermilk. But it was made with more buttermilk, made it taste better, I think. It was better. The meat, it used to be so dark when it was baked, and it used to be, Grandma Joseph's kibbe used to be more tender because of the more buttermilk. We enjoyed it more. She taught Claire how to make it. I could never make it because I had this dermatitis and I had this eczema on my hands. And I used to go for radiation treatments, and the doctor had said to me, the dermatologist said, if the day ever comes and you should get skin cancer, he said, you should tell them that you cannot take any radiation or whatever on your hands anymore because your body has had enough of that, you know. I used to go down to the Broderick Tower, you know, right there on Woodward. This man used to have an office. Oh, I had a terrible time. I used to wear gloves from the time the kids were babies, and I used to hate to have to bathe them with the gloves on, so I would take gloves off. I was always afraid it'd slip with the gloves. So I'd use Palmolive soap to bathe the baby. But Ivory soap was the worst. It used to dry the skin out so bad. And
That
then
dermatitis get better?
I had it up, you know, when the first time I got it cleared up was when the cortisones came out, and that was in the 50s. And the little thing of cortisone cream, like about a little jar, like about this big, ran about $12. And that was the only thing that controlled the eczema. And then, of course, if I didn't wear the gloves, it would come back. If I wore the gloves all the time, doing dishes, and I wish I had a penny for all the gloves that I went through. Every time you'd be washing forks or that, you get a hole in the glove is no good. So that's why we put the dishwasher in when Andrea was a baby. We were the first ones to get a dishwasher. That's 40 years ago. Nobody had dishwashers in our group. So Dad said we were redoing this kitchen at the time, we put new cupboards and stuff in. And did you see in the slides, like the picture of the kitchen where there was pink wallpaper on the walls?
Yeah.
And there was pink, the kitchen was painted. We had like blonde, the wood was like a light birch cupboards in that. Well, that was the year that we put in the dishwasher and the disposal and the whole thing. Dad said as long as we're putting in redoing the kitchen, let's put a dishwasher. And so then he used to get so mad at Denise and Marcia. He'd say, you girls are fussing and fussing about who's going to empty the dishwasher. You never washed a dish, and you're fussing. Nobody wanted to empty the dishwasher. The dishes would be washed in there, and they'd argue. They'd really fight about it. You empty it. No, you empty it. And my Uncle Tom would say, what the hell? He said, I've got 4 daughters. Not one of them's ever washed any dishes, and they're fussing about emptying the dishes. He says, I just hope when the day comes that you girls get married, that your husbands can afford a dishwasher for you. And they did, they all got dishwashers. But isn't that something? We used to argue about who's going to empty the dishwasher. Nobody wanted to empty the dishwasher.
So when your father, wasn't he perceived as kind of an elitist, or your mother, or both of them, because they didn't associate with the Melkite community?
Or the Maronites on Congress Street. You see, Congress Street was actually just like in Mexican Town. Congress Street, that's where Father Abdu started the Maronite Church. You know, that was the church that the city bought. And they moved out to St. Jean and they built the cathedral. Was that in the 50s? St. Mary's
1962.
Was that when it was? 62?
New one came along in 63, 61 or something.
So anyhow, the majority of people in Detroit that were Maronite and Lebanese and that lived in that Congress area there on the east side, lower east side. That'd be called lower east side. Now a lot of the people did think that we were, even my own cousins, Linda and Ann and Frida and that, you know. And we used to live, when we lived on Meldrum, Aunt Rose and her family lived like 2 blocks down, and we used to see them a lot when we were kids. We used to play with each other quite a bit. Linda was my age, Ann was a little bit younger, a little bit older than Clara, in between Adele and Clara. Miller was older than all of them. But we were very close as cousins. But as we got older, and different friends, different schools, and different stuff, and our way of life was different, and people used to look at us and think we were too snobbish, you know. We always dressed really well, we had whatever we wanted, we didn't have a car until Adele graduated from high school, then Grandpa got her a car. But, yeah, we didn't used to go down to St. Maron Church when it was on Congress. We did go, that's why we were married.
But you never would have gone to St. Maron because your father was Melchite.
Yeah, we used to go to Our Lady of Redemption. Our Lady of Redemption, before they built that church, the Melchites used to baptize their kids at St. Maron because there was no Arabic church other than St. Maron. Then when they built Our Lady of Redemption, that must have been, oh God, I don't know how long ago. But they built that church, and then
It was built in the 20s because we have a photograph of it being dedicated at home.
The Melchite church was in the 20s. Must have been the late
1929.
Yeah, I was
There
gonna
is
say.
Bishop Gallagher and Solanus with them.
Yeah, at Our Lady of Redemption.
Yeah.
Well, the Melchites finally got their act together, and they built that church, and they had the priests there. And but we didn't used to go. Number one, we didn't have a car. But we used to go Palm Sunday, not when we were little, but when your brothers and sisters were. We used to take them, who were the grandchildren of. And we used to, like Claire and I were like fools. We used to make the 2 churches, run ourselves ragged to make both churches Palm Sunday, to please both sets of grandparents. Now, when you think about it, it's kind of foolish. We would go, they were both at the same time, that was the problem. So what we would do, we'd go to St. Maron's first, because he would start at 10:30. We'd walk in the procession, and you know, they'd have the big procession, and we'd have the big, I've got those candles still up on the 3rd floor. Those big candles we used to buy that are decorated. We used to put fresh flowers and ribbons and stuff on them. And we would take those. And then, right after the procession, we wouldn't stay for the Mass, we wouldn't have time. We'd get in the car and beat it like crazy to get to Our Lady of Redemption, to be there. You wonder how you do it. But we did. We did that for so many years, so the kids got older.
So then you went to St. Catherine's as a child until 8th grade?
I went to the 10th grade.
10th grade?
I started St. Charles in the 10th grade, 10, 11, 12.
Because your family moved again?
Well, we had moved, but Adele, and when we moved to St. Charles Parish, Lila and John and Jeanette started there. We had, Adele was in the midterm. That was the year she graduated. So she wanted to finish at St. Catherine. So the 3 of us used to take 2 streetcars, 2 buses, every day to get to St. Catherine. We used to take the bus on Van. We lived on Baldwin there, above the store, when we first moved there, before we bought the house on Seminole. And we used to walk to Van Dyke. Now you got Baldwin, Seaburn. Baldwin, Seaburn, what's next? I don't know, maybe Van Dyke. And we used to walk there in Lafayette and wait for this bus that rarely came because it was hardly used. So it wasn't a regular schedule, keep moving. We used to stand sometime and wait 10, 15 minutes or more for the bus to come. And then we'd get off that bus and we'd have to take one from Van Dyke over to Seminole with the school bus. We used to be on Mack and Seminole. We'd get out, and then we'd have to walk one back down to Sylvester. And we did that. It was the coldest. That's when I got chilblains and my feet froze. Got frostbitten.
That
The
ever get
snow,
better?
It was so. It got better after
Better?
we were married and we went down to Oklahoma. And the heat. The temperatures in Oklahoma, see how hot it is, 92 now, used to be like that at night in July and August. We were there, we went there in July after we got married. We stayed in Muskogee, July, August, September, October. And then Dad was moved to Camp Hood, Texas. And we stayed there. He was switchboard operator. And we stayed in Texas. And until I was 7 months pregnant, I said I didn't want to have the baby at the camp hospital, so I came home. That's when I came here and stayed until John was born. But that was the time when my feet, I wasn't exposed to the cold winter anymore. It was the hot.
And that healed it up.
Well, I always had problems. My feet are never warm. They're always cold.
Still now that way?
Yeah, summertime, anytime, my feet are always cold. I used to go to the doctor and get treatments. I couldn't even wear a shoe. I used to go to school. I used to have to put on they used to call them galoshes in those days. Without the shoe, I couldn't stand a shoe on my foot. And that was why I was refused at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital. Wanted to go into nursing. And then the woman, my grades, I was like an A student. My grades were, I had all the requirements, and she says, you know, dear, in those days, the nurses, the first thing they got into the school, they put them right on the floor. They started right out using them on the floor.
What about going to the beach when that?
I didn't used to go to the beach. So anyhow, so she said, you can never make it as a nurse. Because you're on your feet all the time. I was crushed. One of my best friends went to St. Joe's. Madeline was at Providence that time. She graduated the same year. We kept the same group of us that we knew at St. Catherine's. See, Madeline and Virginia and them all at St. Catherine's. And even though we moved to St. Charles, we still kept in touch. And Madeline went to Providence Nursing School. And this good friend of mine who died, I remember we had the class reunion at St. Charles. She died, she was young, Helen Sullivan, her name was. She went to St. Joe's. But, so then I said, well, what did I do? Then I started working in the store. I used to help Dale and Grandpa and then in the store. And then it got to be the wartime, and all our business there was...
You told me you met Uncle Tom in 1939.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the year you met him.
The year I graduated from high
You
school.
met Uncle Tom in Uncle 3,
It
1939.
was at a picnic, a Maronite picnic. Grandma Joseph had her sights on the Francis girls.
For years.
Oh, she prayed and she hoped.
Did she know the Francis
Well, she
family
knew.
before?
She knew Mom and Dad from St. Mary's Society. You see, that was St. Mary's
And
Society.
Jell knew Grandma Francis back in 1935.
Yeah, but Grandma Francis never belonged to the Ladies of Charity.
Oh.
She never joined the Ladies of Charity, although Grandma Joseph.
Yes, I think Grandma Joseph had the eyes in
She-
the 30s.
Well, anyhow, so we went to that picnic.
Where was it?
It was at some park. You know, they used to rent these parks, and they had like a dance floor, and they had picnic tables. You know, like out Utica Road, and in those days that was all farmland, you know.
It wasn't Belle Isle or one of those
No,
places?
It wasn't in the city of Detroit.
No, it was outside the city. It was at one of those parks. And see, Grandpa, the four of them belonged to the St. Mary's Society. St. Mary's Society started with the idea of the people getting to get together, know each other. And that. Although it was known as the Maronite, St. Mary's, and because of the church.
The year Uncle Tom met you, he was 23 years old.
Was he 23?
Yeah, 1939, because 1916 to 1939 he was 23.
He was an old man. I was graduating, I was 18.
He wasn't that old.
And then I said, holy cow, you know.
5 years.
I didn't give him much chance.
What did he do? Did he approach you at this?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Yeah, so he said, you know, he introduced
Ahla
himself.
sahla?
Oh, we didn't used to speak. Dad
They
used
say,
to-
hey,
Dad-
baby.
Dad used to think he was a big-time Lebanese, he's a big-time Arabic speaker because he had made that trip, you know, he stayed 6 months. When he graduated from high school, Grandma and Grandpa gave him this trip. He went with the Yezbiks on the boat. And that was when coming back, he stayed there 6 months. Coming back, he said all the staterooms had Hitler's picture, everything was Nazi signs. He was on a German boat coming back home, the Bremen. So, so he thought he was, you know, he was attuned to the Arabic world. He spent 6 months, went to Jerusalem, went to Palestine. He just traveled. He was, you know, he was living the life of luxury. He stayed with his grandma and grandpa in Khartoum, and this one cousin was a tailor, made him these suits. It's ugly as hell. There's pictures of these so-called tailored suits. You ever seen that album that has those?
There's an album.
Well, anyhow, he thought he could work as charming. I wasn't interested. I was just, you know, I just thought I.
You must look pretty good for 23, though.
He was 23.
Hey, Uncle was 23 when he met you.
Oh yeah, he was handsome. No question about it.
Was
But-
JoJo there also? at that?
No.
Joe don't want no part of that.
Why not?
He was dating this girl from Hazel Park, and your grandma was having a fit. You know, he was buying her a wristwatch and.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
Dad never told me about that.
Oh yeah, my grandma was she was really upset. She
I
was-
wonder how many dates he
I
had
used
with
to
her.
spend a lot of time with her, from what I heard.
I never been told this.
Well, look at that, Mark. You missed out. Your father never confided in
He never told me that.
How long was he
He
dating this girl
never
from Hazel
told
Park?
me this.
How long was Uncle Joe dating this
I
girl from
don't
Hazel
know.
Park?
I don't know, but
Maybe
Dad-
at 1 or 2 months or something. Maybe
No,
more.
longer than that. Because I was.
He was
Dad,
only 21 years old in 1939.
That's true. Dad was 21 and but he never told me this.
was this?
Oh, I was under the impression Dad's first big dating spree was my mother.
Oh, no.
Not this woman from Hayes. What else about my father?
he had a lot of girlfriends, your father. Joe.
Did he really?
Yeah, he used to get.
Did Uncle Joe have more girlfriends than Dad?
I kind of think so.
Really?
Yeah. Dad used to go around with the crowd from St. Agnes, you know.
Now, did Uncle have any well-known gals he used to
Well,
go
he
out
used to
with?
tell me about it. He used to like Helen Murphy, you know, the Murphys. They moved over to St. Charles.
Oh, couple non-Lebanese Syrian there, huh?
None of them were Lebanese. They were all.
And I didn't know this about
No,
my
they-
father.
They didn't know any of the. They didn't go over
So
there.
what you're saying is that Dad and Uncle Joe were playing around with these non-Lebanese girls, and then when they finally got serious, they decided they
Well,
had
their
to marry a
mother really
Lebanese.
pushed. I don't know how many her knees wore out. I think from prayer, but.
Yeah, sure. Grandma Joseph, God rest her soul, had her mind on the 2 Francis girls. She did.
Yeah,
That was going back to the 30s.
that's right.
So why did Uncle Joe finally break up with
Well,
this girl
so
from
fine.
Hazel Park?
Well, I think see what happened was, then we were married, and Dad went back, you know, he was in the service. And then,
Rick.
we came home on furlough. Well, anyhow, Dad would say to him, he'd write to him, he'd say, Joe, why don't you go see Clara, you know, go over. And, no, I think it was when he was in Alaska, and I was home there.
You do know that Uncle Tom, your dad, was in Alaska.
He was in Alaska, and I was working in the store there. And I used to get, that's when Dale and they all used to tease me if I didn't get a letter, you know, they'd say, oh, I
But then Dad had a break.
She didn't
Now,
hear from town. They
Before
used to tell me like-
Dad met Mother, then he had a breakup with this Hazel Park.
Well, I don't know how serious it was, but
It might not have been too serious.
Well,
Maybe it was.
He bought her a wristwatch. That's pretty serious in 1939.
so Grandma used, but anyhow, so Tom would write to him and say to him, why don't you go over and see Ida? You know, he was in Alaska at the time. Why don't you go over to the store and see the Francis girls? Why don't you do this? So he came over the one day. And, hi, how are you, Joe? And we talked and he said, you know. And Clara wasn't there. Clara was working Phelps Craig. It was a coffee. She used to bag coffee.
Maybe my mother dated someone seriously too that I don't even know about.
No, not that I knew.
You would know this.
I would have known. But anyhow, so then he came around a couple of times, and then one time he came, well, you know, Lewis and Joe Yesbick, they had these motorbikes. They would come over on Baldwin on this. Joe Jr. really wanted so badly to date Lila, but Lila didn't give him the time.
I heard that story.
Lila didn't give him the time of day. But anyhow, so then I guess Grandma would say to Joe, are you going to go over to Baldwin or whatever? And I don't know how it was, he came to the house and he met Clara. And then he asked her to go out.
Yeah. It's the way he approached, how swift, I mean, how neat he looked when he first walked in the store and saw Mother.
Oh, really?
That's the story I heard.
Yeah.
And Ida,
I know.
but the story, he was dating it. Do you know how long he was dating this Hazel Park gal?
No,
don't
I just
know.
know your mother told me.
Ah!
She used to get so upset when he was going with this girl from Hazel Park.
No, you mean Grandma Joseph did?
Yeah.
Why did she have against people from Hazel Park?
Well, there goes the concept about marrying your own nationality, see, your own religion. And in those days, you didn't think of
Was it
marrying-
Hazel Park girl? She was probably Catholic though.
Oh, I don't know, Mark, I have no
But the
idea.
name's
It was
lost.
in Arabic.
No, I have no idea.
Might have been about a year, because Dad was out of high school in 1937. He only graduated from 19...
Well, this was later, Mark, because I was in the store, it was in the 40s, it was Dad went in.
I'm talking about this Hazel Park
Well, he was
gal.
going with her later than 37, 38.
So it was 39.
Well, because I was, like I said,
Oh,
met
my
Dad, then
father.
your dad
What
used-
stories do I not know
he used
about
to
my
call me
father?
at the store and say, Ida, please. Just like that. You know, not hello, how are you? Adele answered, you know, how are you doing? Ida, please. And Dad and Adele, and they all used to kid me because he was so abrupt, you know. Ida,
This is Dad.
yeah, Ida, please. That's the way he used to go. So I'd go to the phone. He'd say, well, you know, how about going out? Let's go to the movies. Or we used to like to go to the Palm Beach Cafe where Don Pablo had his orchestra there. Oh, we used to love
You
to
dancing the cha-cha back
Oh, we loved to dance to Don
There was a
Pablo.
dance called Lindy Hop back then.
Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But Don
The
Pablo.
Jitterbug though.
Don Pablo was big in, this was past the Jitterbug stage. Jitterbug thing was when I was in high school. I was already out there. But Don Pablo was the main attraction at the Palm Beach Cafe out on Northwestern Highway out there. It was a nightclub, like nightclub stuff. So we used to go there like on Saturday night. We used to sit and dance to Don.
Don Pablo was Latin music, right?
Yeah, yeah, but he used to play all kinds, but his specialty was the Latin. He got where he recognized us because I think he used to see us come.
So did you get a table right in front there
Well,
by
or
the
else we'd be
orchestra?
dancing around the bandstand, you know, and he'd wave, and then Dad would ask for a request, you know, and we had good times.
Where did you learn how to dance?
I picked it up.
So
What
how many
you did
different
dance,
how many
did-
different kind of dances did you know how to dance?
Did you Jitterbug? And I...
No, I don't think so.
You did.
Did you dance the rumba?
I don't think so. We used to do, you know, like, you did steps that you thought was like the tango or the...
Like George Rapp did in Bolero.
or different, you know, it was just steps that you picked up.
No form, like you couldn't say, well, I knew how to dance the tango, I knew how to dance the jitterbug, I knew how to dance the
Variations.
two-step.
Yeah, or foxtrot.
I had never known, I think until last year, that Grandpa Francis had a brother named James. I didn't know about James
Nisha.
Francis.
Nisha.
That was James. I never knew he existed.
Oh, yeah.
And he
So-
never came to this country.
No.
So when you
he
when
never
you would
came.
go dancing,
Then we'd go out and have something, you know, stop someplace, have something to eat. And then we had this dog named Mickey.
Oh, Mom told me about Mickey.
And I was the only one that used to take care of him. We got him when he was the litter. He was this litter. He was so cute. He was a Spitzen Terrier, cute little black and white dog. Ellis's, who were good friends of ours, their dog had this litter. So they said, do you want to take one in? And we were living upstairs on top of the store then. You know, the dog really had no yard or no place to run around. Oh, please, can we have the dog? Can we have the dog? So Mother said, okay. But you know, if you get this dog, you have to take care of it. You had to go down steps to go out, up steps, in and out, because we were on top of the store there. So we got the dog. And you know who was it that had to bathe it and brush it? And I had full range with this dog, this Mickey. I used to take care of him. We got a lot of pictures of him. So, but the only thing about Mickey, he would bark like crazy if he saw anybody with a hat on. And
What
Dad-
type of dog was Mickey, by the way?
He was a combination of Spitz and Terrier. Dad used to wear a hat then, so we'd be coming home late at about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and Dad would be dropping me off. You know, they had to go upstairs. There was on top of the store
I
there.
wonder if Uncle Tom had any steady girlfriends before you.
He might have.
He might have.
But anyhow, so this dog would bark like crazy. He said, shh, 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 trying to keep it. Then I'd say to Tom, take off the dumb hat. I mean, he doesn't like anybody that's got a hat on. He had a thing about it. So after that, he wouldn't wear a hat. But this dog, do you know we had this dog after the war. We came back. John was a baby. And my mother said, if that dog, he was very jealous because, you know, I used to take care of him. And Ma said, the minute that dog takes one little snip at the baby or that, out he goes. By that time, he was pretty old. And he was beginning to get a little bit mangy, you know. What was that? John was born in 45.
Yeah.
And God, we had that dog since about 10 years, 9 years, I think he was about 9 years old when he died. So I remember sitting on Seminole one day. I had John on the couch, you know, I was changing him or something. And the dog would always come and sidle next to me, you know. I'd pet him, nice dog, Vicky, you know, talk to him. And he'd sit right there alongside the sofa, the baby was. And my mother said, if he does one false move, out he goes, you know. So we would watch him. Well, he growled a couple of times, but he never snapped at the babies. When he saw me giving more attention to the baby, naturally the dog wanted the attention. But yeah, he
died of old age.
Yeah, he started to get mangy and sick, and they just took him to the dog pound. But yeah, that was Mickey. He couldn't stand anybody wearing a hat. He used to bark, and God, he had a real loud bark, wake everybody up. And they'd say, well, everybody knew what time I got home that night, you know.
What time did you used to get home from dates with Dad?
Well, it depended where we went. We went, you know, usually about 12:30, 1 o'clock, because he had to come clear across to the west side home, where he was living out here at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were out here already. And I'd say, where is Pleasant Ridge? Never heard of it. He said, it's out of Woodward. I said, the only place everybody knew out North Woodward was Shrine. Nobody ever heard of Pleasant Ridge. None of us on the east side did anyhow. Everybody knew 12 Mile Woodward was a Shrine Little Flower. That was the big attraction.
And what happened the time that you were at Rackham Golf Course?
We were locked in.
What happened there?
We had to climb the fence.
What were you doing at Rackham
Well,
Golf?
we were sitting in the car, sitting and talking, and oh God, the guy came, the caretaker came, and so then Dad had to go over the fence to a telephone. You know those houses along the Huntington Woods there?
So this is at nighttime.
It was at night, yeah.
So you pulled into Rackham Golf
It was
Course on a date.
Yeah, there was still, the place was still open. I don't know what time they closed the gates.
So you must have been there pretty long.
Well, we were sitting there,
I
and
never
then
heard that story.
we couldn't get out.
I never heard the story about my father. A steady girlfriend
See,
for my
Mark,
mother.
there's a lot of things you didn't know.
So you were in Rackham Golf Course and you realized that it was nighttime and you tried to get out and the gates were locked.
So Dad had to go over the fence and go call and have somebody come and open it. And boy, were we embarrassed. I came and he had to open. I don't know where he might have been right close by. He must have had somebody on duty. But he, that's,
And then did your mom ever find out
but
about you getting locked in Rackham Golf Course?
I don't know.
You never told her.
I don't remember. I'm doing a Bill Clinton now and saying I don't remember.
Oh, the way the economy is doing nowadays, he may go down as one of the best economical presidents.
Oh, yeah.
Despite his other problems.
Besides where you can't remember who gave him money for his campaign. But anyhow, that's the story. But there.
So
yeah,
then
we had a
how
good
was
time.
it, how was it that you came to see Dad on a steady basis? What changed your mind about him so that you only were dating him?
Well, we got to be, we liked it. We had the same interests. We liked the same things. And yeah, he was older, but then I didn't date him right in the beginning. I used to call him, like I'd say, well, the CYC was having a barn dance, and do you want to buy a ticket? And this was like in 1940, and then I didn't date him right away. I met him in 39. We didn't date right away. So then I said, you know, I saw him. I said, well, you know, the CYC, that was the Melkite group. They had I told you, young people got to, a lot of them married. They met their spouses through this club, the Melkite. Esther Antadel met Uncle Louie, and
The story about Aunt Del and Uncle Louie is how Mom or you pointed the finger at Uncle Louie and said, "This looks like the one for Aunt Del."
oh really? Yeah, he's only 4 months older than Adele.
That's right.
Yeah, Adele will be 80 in December.
That's right. And you'll be
80 August the 5th.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you had the same kind of interests as Dad? What kind of interests?
Yeah.
Yes. What kind of interest do you recall?
Well, we used to like the same books, the same music stuff. Dad was the one that introduced me to classical music. I never cared much about classical music.
You're trying to imagine what interests my mother and father
And
had.
then we had, and like I said, we got to know each other gradually. It wasn't like boom, bang, and there you are.
Well, Mom and Dad.
And I figured at that time, and then I remember it was my 21st birthday. He was in the service, and we went out to Frankenmuth. We drove, it was beautiful, it was in October. I was 21 that year. We got married, it was in July, I was 22, and I was going to be 23 in October.
When, so how long had you been dating when he decided to propose to you? How long had you been dating
Do you
seriously?
remember that? You might not remember that.
Well, he was in the service, so he used to write these letters all the time. I don't know what I did with all those love letters. I think I got rid of them. I never saved them all. I had bags of letters. I don't know.
I wonder if
I'm not
my
a
father
saver.
left bags of letters to Mother.
I'm not a saver.
Oh.
I should have kept some of those.
Power to discover those on
Dad used to
Sunset.
write prolifically. He used to write. He'd write pages and pages, you know. And then he'd talk, you know, about when I come home. Well, we did have an engagement party.
How did Dad propose to you?
Yeah,
When?
we were engaged before he left for Alaska.
When was that?
And we were living on top of the store there with pictures, you know, the engagement party. He's in his uniform, and my cousins were there. We were there we had a party on Baldwin, and that was when we were engaged. Now that must have been in what, 42? Yeah, he was over there for 2 years.
That's when Mom really got to know Dad well in 42.
Yeah. Well, we got engaged, and then he went overseas. And then he used to always write about when I come back, we're going to get married and this and that. Then they had a time came when they had a 30-day pass. After they had their time up in the Aleutians, they were coming back here, and then they were going to stay, and they said they were going to stay in the States. So he wrote and said, well, we'll get married when I come in April. So, okay, luckily we didn't get invitations made out of that, because he got here and he completely said, well, he didn't think he was ready to get married. My dad had a fit. That's when my dad was ready to throw him out on his ear, because I had gone and ordered this dress, this beautiful dress.
I sometimes don't realize how mad parents can get at boyfriends or girlfriends.
You know, so my mother was upset.
I don't know.
My mother was
know.
upset, but she kind of tempered that a little, you know, and said, so he had no reason. And we went all these different places. He was here for 4 weeks. We went to these different places, different trips and everything. But he said he didn't think he was, we were going to get married. So he went back to camp. And the day after he went back to camp, I get the letter. What a fool I was, we should have been married, and blah, 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 and on he went. And then that was April. We got married that following July.
July 44.
But he requested a leave of absence. His father was ill. He said, could he get 10 days off? They have a business, he had to come to, which was not on the up and up. This is what he got.
And they had, like Dad marrying Mother, he had to be married in his uniform. That was, now could that been changed?
Tom had the uniform on too.
But that had to
At
be the
that
rule.
time, because the country was at war. See, after that, once the country wasn't at war, you didn't have to wear the uniform, even though
But Dad and Uncle had to wear
yeah,
that
they had the
because
army uniform, yeah. But, so then he got a 10-day pass. So this was 4th of July. We were calling people on the telephone, inviting them to the wedding. We spent that whole weekend. And then my dress was made. We went to the bridal shop in Hamtramck.
and Mother broke her foot, right?
Yeah, your mother couldn't be in
Now,
there.
did Dad make his?
No, your dad, Albert, was best man.
Now, yeah. Oh, that's right. Albert, we have pictures of that.
Yeah.
Albert
I don't
was
know
the-
why your dad didn't make it. He must have been, couldn't get out, couldn't get time off. But anyhow, so the Schmiegel dress shop in Hamtramck was noted big bridal shop. So they made the dresses for Adele and Lila and myself in that 4 days. They were these gowns and they had it all ready in that. And then we had the wedding in July the 9th. And like I said, we invited the people over to, but that wasn't too big a thing because it was wartime and you could do those.
Like Mother, were you able to get a ham? Because Mother told me a ham.
Chickens. Dad had to get chickens for the Whittier Hotel. So
Evidently, despite Grandpa Francis having his fit that day, he must have considerably mellowed towards Uncle in later time.
Oh, you mean about, well, that was, I should have told him to get going. I was so mad. I said, how could you have the nerve, because your grandmother Joseph was so, we went, we bought picked out the gown. It was April, it was beautiful satin with the beads. And we had all intentions. And then he gets home and he says, well, he's not sure.
So what did his
You know
mom
how
and dad
Dad used
say?
to do, he used to
Yeah, well,
best.
what did Grandma and Grandpa Joseph think about that?
Well, I guess they were quite upset, but what could they say? Kind of embarrassing. But my dad and my mom, and I could have, at the time, I was all said, well, buddy, just go and don't come back.
Yeah.
See.
Right.
And I got this letter,
Rick.
oh, what a mistake I made.
Rick.
Oh my gosh.
These things about our parents we don't know about.
You're not putting all this on the screen. So
This is, by the way, not gold.
This is private stuff. So anyhow, that was the way that went down. But we got married. The man at the Whittier, it was wartime. You couldn't get stuff. So he said, I can't get any chickens for the breakfast. And we had the breakfast at the Whittier, which is quite a plush hotel then. And then at night we had the reception at St. Mary's Hall.
Oh my.
But Dad got Eastern Poultry on the line and they got the chickens. They brought the chickens to the Whittier for them to cook them.
After what you told me about my father, I was always under the impression his only big steady was Mother. He only dated Mother on a regular basis. And he might have gone out on a few occasional dates in high school, but never a lot.
Well, I don't know how serious this Hazel Park date,
Might have been too
but
serious.
Grandma was quite upset about it.
Did you date any men besides Dad?
I used to date, when we were in high school,
Yeah.
you didn't really go, if anybody went steady, they were looked upon as being nerds because you felt, St. Charles was a school like St. Mary's, small group. In fact, our class was the biggest, there were 60 in our senior class. And the people, only one guy had a car, that was Al Casper, he was Lebanese, he was a doctor. He went to medical school, he was a doctor. He was the only one, his father was quite wealthy, and he had a car. The only one of the whole, there were maybe about 20 guys in the class, 20, 25 guys, and the rest were girls. So everybody used to go in groups. We used to go to Belle Isle. We used to, Belle Isle was the place because it was close to St.
If you were to go, if you were to go steady, then it would have been after high school.
Yeah,
When you're out of high school.
there were a couple of kids that went steady in high school, but then that fizzled out. But anyhow, we used to go in groups, and we'd go to Belle Isle. We used to have picnics, weenie roasts. We used to go and we used to have a lot of fun. I mean, we used to walk the Belle Isle Bridge, think nothing of it, because it wasn't far from where Grandpa's store
Or
was.
you were in the depths of depression back then.
No, this was in the 40s.
Oh, I thought you meant,
Graduated in 39, so this was 38, 37.
now it's still depression during
No,
that time.
not really. No, I think we were pretty well over it by then.
No, the depression did not end until according to most historians, to our entry into World War II.
Really? Well, maybe.
But matter of fact, from what we've read about history in 1938, there was such a deep recession, it set the level almost back to 1933.
Really? Well, Gamses came to America in 30.
Is that something to know that, Aunt Ida?
Yeah, they came.
Know that.
They were able to get papers because they were wealthy. Edith's family was wealthy, and Ernest was in the military. But he had his doctor. They used to call him Dr. Gons because he was an attorney. If you were a doctor of law, you were called a doctor. So he couldn't practice law here because he didn't know the language. So that's why when they start settling with the concentration people, the people whose families were killed, he used to go to Munich and try them the cases in the courts. He'd go twice a year to Munich, Germany. But they came here, they had somebody, Pleasant Ridge was very anti-Semitic, they didn't want any Jews living here. They had somebody buy the house, it was not Jewish. Friends of theirs, I don't know who they were, but they bought the house. So Gans never ventured out among the neighbors. You never saw them. People never even knew they existed on the street.
But you, Grandma and Grandpa Joseph
Well,
did.
we knew them because they were right next door. But I mean, it's like the other neighbors, or people like when we had the Amherst Club, no one even knew.
But that later changed.
Oh, yeah, and then Ernest got to be a celebrity when he would tell about their escape from Germany, and they had it in the newspapers, and he was asked to give talks all over, that was quite a thing. Well, they when we had the Amherst Club, they joined, but they kind of stayed to themselves. But people, anybody that met them liked them so well. They were so charming. I mean, they were the kind of people that, like she worked at the museum. She used to do what I'm doing. She was gallery information. She used to go every Tuesday. And I used to say to her, Edith, when I retire, that's one thing I wanted to do. But the museum wanted to come in and take pictures of their silver. They asked if they could take some of the antique silver that they had in the house from Germany, if they could put it on display at the museum and that, and they said absolutely not. And of course their paintings, remember they used to have the little lights over the paintings and everything. So they were really cultured people. But you see, the fact that what ticked your grandfather off was that they were German and they were Jew. And then your Grandpa Joseph, everybody was Nazi. Anybody that was German was a Nazi, everybody that was Jewish. It was terrible because it was embarrassing that people lived right next door. Never talked to them. They never talked to them until we came, and I started talking to them.
And Grandma Joseph later did.
Well, Grandma Joseph came around more, but your grandpa? No.
He was, as I said earlier,
Yeah.
Grandpa Joseph was angry at Jews because of the Balfour Declaration, the Zionists, and about Palestine. That generation, a lot of Arabs of that generation did not forget that. Now, when your generation and my generation came along, that wasn't important
No.
because the state of Israel came along.
Yeah. So anyhow, then we got to be, and it was just like they were more friends than just neighbors.
And yet Grandpa Joseph got
the
along.
kids, and they were to all the graduations and to the baptisms.
And yet Grandpa Joseph
And they
got
used
along
to
with other
celebrate.
Jews.
They used to celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah because Edith would have a Christmas tree, and Ernest used to call himself a German, not a Jew. So this is why they wanted to keep the German customs too. See? And they would always have the tree. And in the Huntington Woods, there where Margaret lived, it was just the Jewish, because he was a cantor at the temple. And Ernest did not like him. He had never cared too much about it, but the man, he was a lot older than her. She was only I think Edith said, well, she's the same age as I am.
You're talking about Walter Stark.
Yeah, but Margaret was young when she got married. They came from New York, and she met Walter Stark when they got married. And her father was upset that she didn't continue her education. She was a smart woman. She married Walter Stark, and he had money. He had a plastics company, you know, that's where he made his money, was in plastics.
Did Gans have any other children besides Margaret?
No, just Margaret. And I think Ernest had a sister, remember his sister Clara, they used to come to visit, and his other two sisters from Germany. I don't think Edith had anyone. I think she had a brother, but he died. But her mother used to live with the mom. She used to sit out on the out there on the patio in a wheelchair, because she had arthritis so bad. She used to have a woman come in and stay with her, because Edith used to work downtown at the dress shop in Morris.
So then you and
But
Dad.
then you see, then Margaret's kids used to come. I swear to God, every Sunday, they never missed. They would be here for dinner. And they had the kids, Barbara was Denise's age, and Joanna was Andrea's age, and Julie. They were all. The oldest was Bob. He was, I think he was Tom's. He was the same age as Tom. He went on to be a doctor.
And yet Grandpa Joseph worked with Jews and he got along with them.
I know it. Well, like I said. It
There
was
were
because-
Jews he
It
didn't
was
like.
because of wartime, and I'm sure that's what it was.
There were Jews. Because later Dad told me that he abhorred the Holocaust.
And then Trevero, oh my God. Grandma had a fit when Trevero's bought that lot, because Grandpa tried to buy that lot. He'd go to the city hall and say, I'd like to buy that. He used to take care of it. He used to plant flowers, used to cut the grass.
We have photographs of that.
Everybody thought that the lot next door belonged to here, so they thought that he owned it because he used to take care of it, plant flowers. And he tried to buy it, and they always said they didn't know who owned the property. They always told him they didn't know who it was that owned it. They had no. He said, how can you not know the property lives in the city? Well, they must have known, but they didn't want to say. But it turned out it was Trevero, the hardware store. You know, it used to be on the corner there on Woodward Heights. You know, then they moved out and they called it Long Lake Road. They made a fortune in Trevero. But anyhow, pretty soon here we see the spring of '52, and they're excavating next door. They're digging a hole.
Grandpa Joseph had just died in the winter.
That's right. And Grandma had a fit. They took all this dirt and they put it over the peonies. They threw all this dirt over the flowers, over everything. And so she and Mrs. Trevero never spoke. She used to call Mrs. Trevero all kinds of names. Mrs. Trevero was a hard woman to like anyhow. She stayed to herself. He was easy to talk to, but not her.
Did she ever talk to him?
Who?
Grandma Joseph?
To the mister?
Yeah.
I don't know. He used to be, you see, when his boys grew up and they left and they graduated from MSU, he took over the business. And then he retired. And they used to go to Florida. They used to spend all winter in Florida, and they had a place up north where they used to go for the summer. But,
I'm having a hard time. Neighbors not talking to each other because
I'll
on Sunset, we always did.
well, that's what I'm saying. And like I said, it was when I came, when Dad and I came here, that we really got to talk to the neighbors and know the neighbors. And the neighbors never said, oh yeah, we knew Mr. and Mrs. Joe. They never saw them. I think it was because during the war, when the boys were gone, she used to go down to the store and stay just to kill time, you know, because there was nothing to do here. And then she'd come home late at night and Grandma did not get into any of the activities in the city. See, that made a big difference too. They kind of stayed to themselves. They used to be just them and Charlie, you know.
And in jail.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that's the way it went. But
So then, when you got married, July 9th, 1944, and then you moved with Dad down south.
yeah, Oklahoma, Muskogee. And we rented a place with these two other GIs that were in the same outfit with Dad and their wives. One was from Lorain, Ohio, and the other was from Rockford, Illinois, which were Midwest. And then there was Adam Elaine that lived in Port Huron. And she came down and got married there. And Dad and I stood up, we were best man and maid of honor. They didn't have any sheets, they had nothing. So I give her this brand new set of sheets, which was on black market because it was so hard to get them, because they had no place. They had nothing. She came from Port Huron to get married. We got married in this church in Muskogee where we went every Sunday for Mass. And we went and they had a party that night. And they had, Oklahoma was a dry state. So they had this so-called, what they used to call bathtub gin. Oh my. I think all the years that I've lived, 75 years, that was the only time that I ever really got sick on liquor. Oh, I was so sick.
Then you haven't done bad your day.
I was so sick.
Then when you had
Guys are all drinking.
but wait a minute. But then wait a minute. When you had those St. Mary or Our Lady of Redemption gatherings, I don't think our parents did bad drinking.
We never used to drink at those affairs. But I was this was in the army, see, and these guys, they all had the beer and the gin. Oh my God, there was about 5 couples that night, because that was the wedding reception. They were a good couple. We went to their 25th. They had a 25th silver anniversary.
You sure, by the way, whenever you and Dad, you and Uncle or Mom and Dad, that is before we were all born, never had a few drinks at those St. Mary or Our Lady of Redemption occasions?
Well, Dad and I used to go to the Palm Beach Cafe. We used to get drinks.
But what I mean is, at Our Lady of
They
Redemption.
serve, like, what were they called? Pink Ladies or different drinks
but
that they used
what
to
I
do.
mean is-
Gin and tonic. The guys at GM used to always kid me because I said, well, I like Tanqueray, They said, boy, you went for the expensive stuff. I said, why not? My husband sells it in the store. And if he doesn't sell it, he brings it home. But anyhow, I used to like gin and tonic. I really missed that when I couldn't have that.
But when you went to the Our Lady of Redemption and St. Mary occasions, and this is before me and Marcia
Well, no,
and the gang,
because they
did they ever have alcohol then?
They used to have beer and stuff, but we didn't used to drink. We
Yeah.
used to drink Coke or whatever. We were on our best behavior,
With the church.
There's the Francis girls, there's a reputation there. Yeah, but those were happy days.
So then how long after you got married were you pregnant with John?
Not long after.
Because John's born August 45.
Yeah. That was the big thing down there. All these women that were down there, they were waiting every day, were they going to, they wanted to have a baby, they wanted to get pregnant. There was this one gal that lived downstairs from us. She was a real hillbilly, I don't know, from the south somewhere, and she had this little baby, this girl. She used to carry it on her hip all the time. She was always barefoot, this woman. She was a young kid. She must have been about 20. And she would carry this baby who was so dirty. Diaper dirty, face all dirty, pretty little girl, but she never cleaned her. And she'd be walking around, cigarette in her hand, and this little baby, this little girl. And then Marge Jacobson, I would say, geez, look at this. And Marge, was Marge and Jim Jacobson from Lorraine, Ohio. And they said, we had like 2 bedrooms, each one had a bedroom, and you shared the kitchen. And there was downstairs, 2 couples downstairs and 2 couples upstairs. And those were really our only friends. We went on picnics, we went together, we did things.
The Belle Isle was a big place.
No, I mean, this was when we were down in Muskogee. Yeah, Belle Isle was the only place, really, that you could go and have a good time, you didn't pay. And it was close. We lived on the east side. It was close by there. Everybody used to drive to Belle Isle when we got older, and when we were younger, we used to just walk to Belle Isle or take the bike or something.
So you were down there in Muskogee and you were pregnant. And how long did you stay there pregnant?
Not that long. We went to Texas then. But I was pregnant at Christmas. We were down there in July.
So that was your first Christmas away from home?
Yeah, and
That
Dad
must have
couldn't
been
get,
hard.
everybody got off but us.
Really?
Dad had KP that night. And our friends all left to go home. I cried all that night, and we had a little Christmas tree. You've seen the picture, a little Christmas tree sitting on the table there. And Grandma and Grandpa Francis sent a box of food. There was salami, and there was cheese, and there was all kinds of sweet stuff. And Grandma and Joseph, they all sent food, and we were home, we were there. I mean, we went to midnight mass, and then came back, and then he got off. New Year's Eve he had to work too, so we didn't get to come home then. And then we went, the first time I came back home was when came back from Texas.
So you moved from Muskogee, Oklahoma
Yeah,
to
to
Fort Hood,
Fort-
Texas.
Fort Worth, it was near Fort Worth, it was called Galveston.
That's a well-known city, Galveston.
On the ocean.
No, maybe it wasn't Galveston, it was in Galesburg, some burg in Texas.
Near Fort Worth.
That's when I was with a tornado. The night there was a tornado, and all the cupboards in the house, and Dad was working that night, he was on switchboard. And the people in Texas there, this comes every year, we expect it, you know. And it got like, it was over 100 and some degrees, and I'm under the covers, my head is covered, I was so frightened. And you could hear the cupboards in the kitchen falling, all the dishes falling, everything's moving. And then the next morning, out on the lawn, there was these dead chickens and dogs and animals, you know, that were all killed from this tornado, the wind and everything. And they just took in their stride, well, this happens every year. God, I was so frightened. I was sweating, it was so hot, but I had these covers over my head. Oh, boy. Dad, where were you when I needed you, eh? But,
So then you came home to have the baby?
yeah, I came home earlier. I came home,
And was John born in the old Providence?
yeah.
Old Providence.
Yeah, problems. I was finishing my sixth, let's see, what was it? He was born in August, and I came home, it was in the spring. I think I was 6 months. I said I don't want to stay down here. I wanted to travel before I got too heavy, and I had to change trains. I was able to get a Pullman, an overnight, because I went from Texas to Kansas City, changed trains in Kansas City to Chicago, and then changed trains from Chicago to Detroit.
There was no way you could fly back then?
No, you couldn't use any of the airplanes. The airplanes were all military. Couldn't use the airplane. In fact, the train, when I went joined Dad, he went ahead of me when we got married, and he said he'll find a place to live and he'll send for me. So it was like about the end of July that I went down. I went down by myself. And I took the 5 o'clock, what they call the, what is that, Chicago train, the 5 o'clock. There was a special that ran every day at 5 o'clock. Well, I took that train, and the trains, you had a hard time getting a train ticket because it was all the military. And I got on that train, and it was all GIs. And I was never been out of the city.
Excuse me, Rick, can I use?
Never out of the state. All by myself. So I got on that train, oh, come on, honey, sit over here, there's lots of room here. It was all GI soldiers on the train today. And from Chicago to Kansas City, and Kansas City to Muskogee. Let's see, no, there was another stop. And they used to call it the old milk train. It used to go so slow from Kansas City to Muskogee. Terrible condition. And that's all the way, that's what it was. It was soldiers all the time on all those trains. And then coming back, when I had the sleeper, there were more civilians at that time, right, going on the train, and I was able to get a train where I slept on the train that one night. And I spent more time at the back of the train there throwing up, and the conductor was so nice. He said, "That's okay, little lady, are you all right, you know? I used to get so sick." I did my traveling on my own. I really grew up fast for someone that had never traveled.
So who took you to the hospital when you were...
I was here, Grandpa Joseph did.
So you moved
Yeah,
back
I got
into
up on it.
Amherst?
Yeah, I came here to stay with Grandma and Grandpa. And it was a Sunday morning, and I was going to go to 11 o'clock Mass at St. Mary's. We were getting ready. And I said to Grandma, I said, I don't think I can make it today. I don't feel good, you know. And this was early, like, because he wasn't supposed to come, they said till later in the month, it was the 19th of August. And so she said to Alex, she says, well, we better wait. I said, I'll wait a little bit. But I start getting cramps and that, and what did I know, you know? So Grandpa took me down, and there I sat, like I told you the other day, 14 hours, just waiting, all by myself. That was the only one that Dad missed, just around for all the others. But he said, it can't be, he's not supposed to come for another 10 days. And I says, yeah, tell me about it. We thought Dad would get home, he'd be discharged, and he'd be a civilian. John surprises. There he was, all 9 pounds,
What was his birthday?
22 inches, the 19th of August. And the first grandchild, oh my gosh, none of the girls were married yet. My sisters were all home, and oh, they made such a big fuss about John. And he took advantage of it, he sure played it to the hilt. Yeah.
Was he a good baby?
Oh yeah, he had his moments, but they all. But Grandma and Grandpa Joseph, you know, when the boys, both Joe came back, and then Dad and Joe stayed in the store all the time, and Grandpa didn't go down anymore, he was retired. So they used to come every day over to Burns, we were living on Burns then. They wanted to take John out to the fire station, to the ice cream store. John could identify every car. He used to read that Time magazine, not read it, but he used to look at the pictures. He knew every car. He knew the Chrysler, he knew the Dodge, he knew them all, he knew them by name. Richard was unbelievable. Dr. Bicknell could never get over it. You know, Dr. Bicknell was Dad's urologist. And when he did that surgery on the dropped kidney, you know, that was related from the service. And so he'd say, Dr. Bicknell, how come you're driving a Ford? You know, he came to the house the one time, and he had his car parked out on Ford. And he said, how this kid knows? I said, oh, this kid, you can quiz him, he knows all. He knew every make car, every model. And he'd say, give me Time magazine, I have to go to the toilet. And he wouldn't sit on the toilet to do his business unless he had that magazine in his hand. I swear to God. That was part of the ritual. He'd sit there.
Who got him started on that?
Well, we had, Dad used to get Time magazine when he was in the service. That's how far back he was getting the magazine. But he liked cars. And you know, Time always had all these car ads. And at that time, they didn't have more.
Which is okay to go now?
And they had, maybe you ought to take a nap before you drive home, Rick. You look tired.
Is it okay to go now, Aunt Ida?
Sure, whenever. Have you heard
give me
enough? You heard
You've
enough?
given me a lot to think about. Especially my father. A lot.
Oh, your father was quite a man about town. I mean, Joe,
That's something I wouldn't even know.
yeah,
He used to like the ladies,
he
but
used to know his,
he told me what he was before he got married. He did tell me. He told me one time,
he liked the ladies.
he told me one time when I was in the hospital, the first time he said, Mark, I was a virgin before I married your mother. He came out and told me that.
So was Dad.
Yeah, I really believe that. I know.
So was Tom. We both.
And
I
we
know
were.
about
I
Joe,
really.
but I know Tom was.
But Dad told me.
Well, and he knew.
Dad told me at the time in the hospital. When,
So maybe he didn't have anything much to do with the gal in Hazel Park after all,
and Dad told me.
other than give her a wrist.
Dad told me at the time in the hospital in 1973, son, I didn't make love to him until I did with your mother. He came out and told me this. And it was in 1973 at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital. He came out and told me that. I said, no.
What were you doing in St. Joseph?
I was in the hospital because of emotional problems.
You
That was my
Pon-
first,
Oh, that was in
Pontiac, my breakdown,
Yeah, that was.
where I had to
the
be
St.
hospitalized.
That's right, St. Joe's in Pontiac. I was thinking the one on
And
the
he came out
boulevard.
and told me that.
And he went to St. Joe's on the boulevard.
And what precipitated that?
About sex and not worrying about having sex or something like that. And he said, he just brought that up in conversation. He told me that.
Oh, that's good.
Just doing that.
Yeah, I would miss him. I miss him.
We are never to judge those who've done it without not being married.
Well, I
God's
think
judging.
years ago, it wasn't prevalent like it is now.
Oh, it's well, Rick, the baby boomers in our generation.
Yeah.
We won't even think about it.
The days when your dad, when they were in school, high school.
Oh, that
If
you just didn't
anybody
do
did
them.
that used to be really scandalous. I mean,
I would scandal. And if a woman got pregnant, she.
oh, yeah.
Oh
She'd-
gosh.
She'd leave town.
If a woman got pregnant, if a girl got pregnant back then,
They'd send her out of the city.
send her out of the city probably. But no, it was very nice, and I said some things about the house that I did not know about. Also about my parents. That
Well, I'm the only one left that's got the information.
Oh, you got the information.
Yeah.
It was great. Rick, thanks for inviting
Well,
me.
we're glad you could come.
I'll see you Wednesday if all goes
Are
right.
you coming Wednesday?
Yes, I am coming Wednesday.
All right. If something turns up, I'll call you, Mark, as far as I know.
There's a lot of other stories we know you could tell us, but we better leave it this for now.
Yeah, this is
This is plenty to think about.
God, this has been how many hours? 2 hours?
About 2 hours, so Rick, we got
Rick,
plenty.
I want you to take a nap before you head for home.
I'm fine.
Bye, Aunt Ida.
I got that look about you. Goodbye, Mark.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Rick.
Bye, Rick.
Yeah. Take it
Bye,
easy,
Mark.
Mark.
See you later.
Bye, Rick.
Yeah. See you later. No, I think you should take a short nap.
Aunt Ida, peace be with you.
Same with you, dear.
Rick, peace be with you.
And also with you.
Yeah.
So did you and Dad ever talk about how many kids you wanted to have?
Well, we always said we wanted at least 4.
Really? How'd you settle on
2
that?
boys and 2 girls. We did get 2 boys and 2 girls at one time, but we didn't stop there. Well, we were in an era where birth control, you just didn't even talk about. I mean, it was a no-no. If you wanted to be a Catholic and you lived your Catholic life, you just, unless you were physically not able or had a dispensation or something, you were careful. I was lucky, the age span between you kids, because I had regular periods where I could gauge my...
Bye, both of you.
Goodbye, Mark.
Bye.
But a lot of women didn't, and they would have like a year or so between babies, you know. But Dad was very tolerant too. He was not a man that you know, some men, they would want their wives having sex all the time or 3-4 times a week, or so.
Dad wasn't like that.
Anyhow. Well, we had a big family, according to the people in Pleasant Ridge. You're the neighbors on the street. Oh, my goodness. 6 children down. Mary Ann Rand lived on Amherst there. But she's gone. She died of cancer 2 years ago. They built that big, beautiful home on Elm Park. Remember the one on Oakland Park? He was a judge. And she had 2 sons, and one son was Marcia's age, and one son was Suzanne's age. Oh, and she's the one that used to be going around with petitions all the time. A real activist, you know. Oh, Ida, another baby? And I say, yeah, there's another baby here. And then when she had a child, same age as you. And I remember I sent her a note, and I said, welcome to the club. She made such a big to-do about, I was the age I was at, and it turned out she had the same way. And she had this little boy. So I remember sending her a note, and I said, I heard about the baby. I said, welcome to the club. She was a pistol, but she's dead and gone. And her husband only lived in that house 1 year and died of cancer. Judge Rand.
Wow.
That beautiful house that, now I know the lady that owned, the people that bought it from Mary Ann Ranner. She's in the garden club. And Mary Ann stayed in that house. The oldest boy met a Japanese woman who was in the Navy, and he married this Japanese girl. And now if it was anybody but Mary Ann, she would have gone around saying, well, can you imagine he married a Japanese girl and that? And then the other boy that was Sue's age, he got married, Charlie, I don't know who he married. But, and then the young kid, I hadn't heard, I don't know, he must be married by now, but I hadn't heard. But, Yeah, it's all about it. We live here that long, you get to know the people. But we were always respected, everybody, you know, everybody on Amherst and in the city, and we always took part in all the activities, and we got to be part of our life. That's why I said to the kids, I can't see living anywhere else, unless I get sick or I have to go, you know. Because, geez, the church here, you know, oh, Ida, where have you been? We haven't seen you, and what have you been doing, and this and that. And I'd say, well, I didn't want to publicize every Sunday and get up and say, oh, pray for Ida Joseph, geez, you know. So, so through the grapevine there, I was staying with Andrea and same with the garden club and women's club. Voting, get to know the people. And we had never been any kind of a shady or scandal thing. We always got along with the neighbors across the street and both sides. And I used to talk to Mrs. Trubero, but Grandma never spoke to her. She said when she came and bought that and ruined all those flowers when they were digging. Well, naturally they threw the dirt over, you know. She was a hard person to get along with. Other people said the same thing. She never got along with me. And then she had arthritis so bad she was in a wheelchair, and they moved her out to a home out in Troy, her sons, you know, after they moved out of here, and she went to like assisted living. And I lost track. I don't know if she died or if she's still alive. We used to call them to come in and do the plumbing. The guy used to come. I'm sticking to this chair, it's the humidity. Richard, you better go take a nap. I'm not going to let you drive till you take a nap.
Okay.
Do it right now. It's 4:30, our time is 3:30 there.
Would you ever change anything about your life if you could?
I just felt I should have been more assertive about moving here. But we were in a bind. We didn't have money. See? We couldn't just say, well, we're moving, you're in this house. What is she going to do? She had no money. She couldn't pay the taxes. She couldn't do. But with her, I think it was something to hold on to. As I got older, I remember like the day that the doctor said she could no longer drive the car. She was 75, I'll never forget, she was my age. She sat in the chair in the dining room. She used to always sit there in this chair and read the Arabic newspaper. It used to come every day. The Al-Bida was a daily Arabic newspaper she used to read. The boys got her the subscription, and she used to have the Reader's Digest in Arabic, you know. And she wouldn't listen to Tom or Joe. She would not listen. I'm going to drive. You can't make me not drive. So her back was so bad from the osteoporosis. You know, she had a lot of pain. And so I talked to Dr. Johnson. I said, you know, doctor, you're the only one she'll listen to. She won't listen to her son. She won't listen to me. And we're afraid she's going to get into an accident or somebody will get hurt. Pleasant Ridge Police, they just used to say, okay, Martha, they knew her, and they would just say, go on, you know, if she went through a stop street or something, they looked the other way, you know. And she used to go in that car every day, Richard. She used to get up, take the kids to school, and stay for Mass. We used to have 8 o'clock Mass at St. Mary's. She would take the girls to school and stay for Mass, and then she would go. And she'd be gone until dinner time. And she'd come